Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. Firstly, many congratulations for making it to this stage. It's a very exciting space to be. I think, um, firstly, thanks for great introduction as well, Ananya. I want to talk about my introduction again, like maybe talking about the things that makes me believe that I think I'm a very good person to talk about the European landscape because when I was building my startup, I think I got an exposure to the European market as well, had some very strong learnings from that space as well. I think before I start my session, I think just one of the things that I have observed ever since I moved to London and started working with European investors and colleagues is coming on the camera is sort of mandatory for everyone. If you're on the call, it's sort of an unsaid thing. Um, I understand a lot of people are in different places, different things going on, but it's one of those unsaid things which is highly respected. Not being on camera is seen as a disrespect on the call. Just something that is very common in the Europe. So I want to start with that. And thank you so much who has switched on their cameras for that. Um, Let me share my screen and we can go through a presentation that I have put together, but please feel free to jump in with the questions in between. I want to make it like a Q&A sessions rather than a presentation. Um, Please let me know if my screen is visible now.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the slideshow mode.
Yes, perfect.
Super. Great. So let me set some context. I am from India. I'm born and brought up in Indore, Madhya Pradesh. I went on to do my mechanical engineering from IIT Roorkee in 2013, almost 13 years back. And I'm one of those unique guys back in 2013 who did not go to finance and consulting and other domain. I sort of stick to my engineering domain and got a job in a German OEM automotive company. I think German context is important here, which I'll talk about in detail. So I got a job in Pune. It was a German OEM company, and they used to manufacture automotive parts for big, the car brands like Jaguar and likes of them. Within 8 months, I decided to quit my job. I realized that corporate was not for me. But then I ended up building a startup after that called Chisel, which was a software platform for supply chain management. Um, when I started that company back in 2014, um, supply chain management using software was sort of a new concept. But because I was always in India, I never thought of taking this product to US or Europe. So for almost 6 years, I ended up building this product only for the Indian market. Um, 2020, my company got acquired. I got a small exit out of it. But the acquisition story is really interesting, and I want to stress on that. So we were acquired by an Australian startup, which was founded by three founders, two Indians and one German, two of them based in Germany and one of them based in Australia. And the reason they acquired an Indian startup like mine was to take this to Europe. They believe that my platform has more value to European customers than catering to Indian customers. So the company got acquired. I joined their India office, and that was my first opportunity to started talking to all the German people. We I got started interaction with a lot of German counterparts who were doing sales and business development in Europe, trying to bring orders for our platform. And there's one of the interesting story that we got one customer who was making industrial machine, and they gave us an order of around 200,000 US dollars, equivalent to like 2 crore, give or take Indian rupees. The order was really crucial. It was the first European order for our company, and it required like 8 components that need to be manufactured. I think it took us around 2 months to manufacture those high precision component. I think the kind of quality and focus that it required, I don't think we did it for any of our Indian customers in 7 years. Long story short, we took 2 months. We made a fantastic product. We were very proud of it, and then we shipped it to the customer. Um, After the part was delivered to them, for a week we did not hear back. For another week we did not hear back. And the third week, we got an email simply stating that we are requesting you to please pick up your packaging back. We are not going to open it. And it was quite of a shock to everyone in the team. I think this was the first global order, European order, big value. And we all were hoping that, this will give us a next big commercial order. And to our surprise, they did not even open the packaging. Um, can anyone guess what happened wrong? Like, I just want to make it more interactive. Can anyone guess in the crowd what went wrong? Why the German customer didn't even decide to open the packaging that we sent to them, and they just decided to give it back?
The packaging itself was so good that he possibly decided not to.
uh, I think you have pretty much bang on. So, you know, a lot of things in the supply chain is something we try to take for granted. So we make great parts, but we shipped it into a wooden packaging, which is very standard in international shipping. But the person who made that packaging, he used the wooden, it was not very flat. It has like some bends. And to fix that problem, he used 45 nails and just randomly hammered it on the wooden box to make it fit. And it worked for us. But when it reached in Germany, they felt that they opened the wooden boxes with machine and opening 40 random nails is just too much of a labor cost for them. And they don't think the order was worth it. But they decided to send us back. Um, I think that really left a huge impression for me. And that's how I want to start my session today. Like one of the things that really stood out for me was that Europeans don't like to improvise around a broken process. They just give up. And which is very common in India, right? If something is not working, we try to solve that problem immediately, but that's not how Europeans work. If something is not working, they'll just say not acceptable and then move on. They'll have a separate session to fix the process, but while the work is being done, it's a broken system and they're not going to spend time on it. Good intent is invisible. Results are everything. So no matter how hard we do, how dedicated we are, how disciplined we are, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's the product and the overall experience that we send to them. And I've realized that, everything on the product is also equally important. Just some things that I draw parallel, given now I'm talking to like multiple startups today, all of them are at a different stages of their fundraising and their commercial traction. So not everything will apply to everyone. But I think the first thing I would say is that even if you're thinking of raising funds in Europe or doing any business in Europe, having that DNA of producing high quality products from day one is necessary. I don't think that fake it till you make it sort of motto really works in Europe. Um, the guys are really smart to pick it up. Um, and if you are building for European customers and subsequently raise European capital, it's important that we build like Europeans as well. Now, this is a very contradictory thought. Europeans take time to build their product. They raise capital, they take 4 years just to build the product. They don't rush in going to the market and showing that product to the customer. This is a very counterintuitive startup mentality. And maybe that's why Europe is not as good as US. But that's how Europeans work. They take time in everything that they do. They don't rush for anything. And I believe that's the same thing that's also expected from the startup founders, that they don't rush for go-to-market. In today's session, I have picked up like 6 things I want to talk about. Something that I have realized working in London, so predominantly my focus is mostly investing in US and European startups, mostly deep tech, mostly in the space of energy, materials, industrial transformation, things like that. So these are the 6 things that I believe is something that you can take away from the today's session. But please feel free to jump in as I go through them. And then there are few more things I want to talk about in the end. I want to start with this one thought, which is well understood, but I just want to flag it at the beginning. European VCs are slower than those in the US. Um, I think Indians are like really smart. I've got like a lot of Indian IIT founders now in London as well, building different kind of startups. And when I talk to the founders, even in US, even in the Europe and UK, the first thing they flag is that European VCs are slow. They are not as fast as in US. And what I mean by that is that the investment process is really long. And just to give you a comparison, let's say if you're talking to a US investor, the first meeting happens today. You may expect a term sheet in a span of 10 days or 15 days. That's the pace US works at. And I suppose India as well. But when you talk to a European venture capital, the average turnaround time is 2 months to 3 months. That's the average. Um, Parag, I'll just get back to you in a sec. Um, that's the average timeline. What it means for the startup founders is that you have to start talking to them way before you think you want to fundraise. Um, and that's really critical. Parag, go for it.
Uh,
Hey, Parag, you have
Yeah.
a hand raised.
Hi. Yes. Sorry.
Hey.
Hi. I took a few more seconds, like European VCs, to unmute my mic. So just like question, because we believe we are into propulsion system, and we believe that Europe is much better market than the US market. Considering this hypothesis, uh, do you still see like an appetite from European VCs towards the propulsion systems, which is primarily for UAVs and other such applications?
Yeah. Great question, Parag. I think I'll come back to it on the next slide. I have one slide for that particular topic as well, which is more on the technology. I think this particular slide, I just want to talk about the timeline. So just be okay with that. And there is one positive side on, the time they take. Right? I think, and which is mostly that European VCs are not really expecting a unicorn. Um, and this is my personal opinion, right? I mean, when we talk to Indian VCs as well, right? I mean, we basically start with almost at least a few billion-dollar market. Europe also works like this. Sorry, US also works like this. But when you think of Europe, Europe investors are most likely happy with $500 million, $600 million outcome. And it's again very much cultural and it's in their DNA. You might have noticed that Europe has a lot of um, family offices. And these family offices are basically family-run businesses which have built wealth over the period of time and are deploying back uh, into the investment world. Um, so that's like a good thing for Indian startups. You don't have to target a really massive market, like multi-billion-dollar market, to really make an impactful VC story in the Europe. You can be targeting like a $600 million TAM, and that's good enough. But one thing which is important is that you have to be very patient working with European VCs, right? A lot of times, European VCs also go silent because they work slow. You might send out an email, for example, to me today, and you will not hear back for 2 weeks. But that doesn't mean I'm not interested. Europeans have a very balanced life, so they work only for 8 hours. A lot of things gets piled up. So response time of 2 to 3 weeks is completely normal. So please don't uh, interpret it as a rejection, right? And then, as I said, like I think they don't necessarily need a very large TAM. I think the second point, and Parag, I think this is the question for you that I want to answer before I take
Okay.
Karan's question. Europeans are very they love tech. They love IPs. Um, so when you think that propulsion is a good market for you in the Europe, it has to be the globally best propulsion system. It can't be just best in India or in Europe. And that's how you have to think about it. Um, I spoke to some of the Indian investors over the weekend, understanding their deep tech rationale of investing in startups. And Indian VC deep tech ecosystem, the thesis today is as long as technology is good enough in India, it's an investable case. But when you go to Europe, you have to compare yourself with intellectual property from China, from USA, from Canada, or from anywhere in the world. And you have to position that your technology is better than them. And when we say technology is better, of course, it cannot be just an uh, incremental change. It has to be a significant step change, and that sets a very high bar on the technology um, that you have to acknowledge. But does that answer the question?
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. I think it's very straight. Yeah.
Karan, if you have a hand raised as well. Hey, Karan, can you hear me? You have your hand raised if you have a question.
I think meanwhile, let's go to Harsh, Dr. Harsh. Hello, Dr. Harsh. I think,
Can you hear
can
me?
you- yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we are into, we have incubated at IIT Bombay. We have developed 3D quantum cladding technology, nanotechnology-based solutions for renewable solar energy, where we increase the efficiency of solar panel. They could be new panels as well as existing panel. So we had some investment very recently from an Austrian German investor, just about $200,000. They were testing the waters, like because we told them that foreign investment in India can take up to 6 months. So actually, when they invested, we could complete all the formalities in around 40 days. Now, should we approach them again for the next round of investment, or is it too early for them to, you know, what's your take?
Makes sense. Dr. Harsh, I think, again, one of the slide I have on this topic is Europe is all about relationship. It's like in US, things are very transactional. Okay, if things are ready, we move forward. I think in Europe, it's all about relationship building. I think that you can take this time to really build better relationship rather than pushing for the funding. Um, which necessarily does not mean that you cannot take the money today. But if you have an opportunity to extend that runway and build better relationship, get onto a better terms, I think you should rather do that. I don't have all the details whether you're focused on European market or in India market today. Maybe we can take that offline, but
Okay,
that's
sure.
all I can say on the
Sure.
information that I have.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Helps.
So on the technology, first is definitely, they like IP a lot. So you have to compare yourself with all the international potential competitors and position yourself as a cutting edge technology. They like patents. So if you can file more patents, if you have a portfolio of patents, that's really helpful. I think these are some of the check boxes, which is always there in a VC checklist in the Europe. And the third most important point is the top co-location. Now, this is very subtle thing. A lot of people do not talk about it. But once you start getting into the nuances, when you talk to a lot of investors, you start getting the feel of it. Even in Europe, everyone is aware of the India story. Everyone is aware that India is growing fast. There's a lot of technologies coming out of it, some really good technologies. But a lot of people are afraid to come to India market. And this could be multiple reasons. One is the legal structure. It's always assumed that getting the money in India is easy, but getting the money out of India is very difficult. Um, the legal structure, if there are some lawsuits, how do you handle them? Things like that. And third most important thing is way of doing business. So if a European VC is investing in an Indian startup, they don't really understand how the legal and governance structure work. They can only rely on the founder and what founder is saying, which means they do not have a lot of transparency on things. These are the top 3 reasons why European investors have been wary of investing in India directly. And that's why top co-location is really critical. If you're thinking of raising a European capital, it's a very good time to also think about where do you want to have your top co. Your top co could be in Singapore, your top co could be somewhere in Middle East, your top co could be in Luxembourg, in Europe, or in Delaware. But I think that's a very fundamental decision that you should take early on if you're focused on the European market. In my personal experience, flipping a company is very cost intensive. So if you're thinking in that direction, doing it upfront is really, really helpful. And when you're going to France, I think this is one thing I want to flag. When you're going to France, I think when you talk to investors, I think always show openness that you're open to flip the company, because that's one thing that's always in the back of the mind. So if you can address the elephant in the room and always say, hey, we are open to flipping the top co from India to Europe because we think Europe is a better market for us. I think it's the elephant being addressed in the room, and that's really a good strategy if you can do that. Okay, this is again like very nuanced. Karan, I don't know if you have a question still. Your hand is still
Yeah, I
up.
think he rejoined, so maybe I think
Okay,
he will be able
we can take the question.
Yes,
Yeah.
hello. Bonjour. I have a question and a comment. So my question is now that Europe has come up with a new European structure called EU Inc. It is something which is like a company which will be complete European wide. Yeah, UK is not a part of EU anymore.
Right. That's right.
So do you know about this new structure?
I'm not well aware of that structure. I know that that structure is coming up, but I'm not into the granular details of it.
Okay. Now, I'm based in France. I was the head of Indo-French Space Program, Trishna Mission. So I have a comment. There was a gentleman asking on a subject which is closer to me, propulsion system. See, in Europe, there is like, if you want to get into deep tech space sector or other sectors like this, you need to align with a prime company there. For in case of propulsion system is Honora France, and it is in case if you're in Germany, it is DLR, Blamfusion. So that is how it works. And then there are multiplicative funds once you prove your technology and you get a patent and all these things. And also there was an Indian company called Infinite Orbits. It's an Indian French company based in Toulouse. They were working on satellite life extension. Just in the last year, French government military gave them a contract of 50 million euro to work with partnership with other companies. So there are high scale up values also there. You have to align with what the European agenda is. Thanks.
Very helpful, Karan. Thank you. Super. I think the third thing, very common, but I've seen it quite a lot, is particularly in Europe, I think saying no is considered as a good strategy. Uh, Again, I'm being very relative here. The US investors like to see founders who are very aggressive, very bullish, uh, conquering the world in 3 years. The European VC mindset is slightly different, right? If you have a little bit more realistic growth projection, which are relatively much more achievable, that's what they really want to hear. So you have to be relatively more honest and more transparent about your growth strategy. And then saying no to an excessive growth is also considered good in Europe. And it's not a very, black and white situation, but I'm speaking relatively. Conservative projections will fell better in the in EU, and it's seen as a good thing. Just don't say yes to everything. Local presence and local team are non-negotiable. Again, like Europe, thinking from the European investor standpoint, they really build comfort with the local people. For example, if you're catering to the German customers, if you have German customers, if you're trying to raise funds from German investors, having a local team member who is born and brought up in Germany, who understands the culture, who understands the language, would be very critical if you want to raise, let's say, German capital. And same goes for in France, or same goes in EU. It doesn't have to be country specific, but as long as you have a representative or the face of the company in Europe for the business development or from the financial commercial side, I think that's really credible. From the outside, India feels like a black box again, right? So until a founder, co-founder, or a lead team member is sitting in EU, EU investors are quite apprehensive to invest in the Indian deep tech system. I think one of the points that I want to flag is leveraging European advisors. It's quite a common theme, even at the early stage company, to have strong advisory board in the startup. So most of the European founders that I talk to, mostly deep tech, they have university professors on their board. They have ex-founders on their board, even before raising the funds. And that sort of helped them navigate the local challenges. It could be like a governance challenges, opening the new doors for the business development or for the fundraising. This is something that most of the deep tech startups can try out. So when you're traveling to France, I think this is one area that you can actively try to figure out if you can get some advisors on a pro bono basis, on the paid basis. But this could be really helpful when you talk to the investors, and showing some local faces on your pitch deck. It should not feel like, it's all Indian team sitting in India. It should feel like, okay, it's a mix of India and Europe team. There are some people on the ground in Europe, and some team is based in India. Right. And the last thing which I want to flag is that everyone in the Europe knows that India has a cost advantage. Everyone knows. And that's one of the reasons why most of the European companies wants to work with India. There are a lot of JVs that keeps happening between Europe and India. There's a clear, so I don't think the value proposition when you say that we are cheap is good enough. I think that story is an old story now. That playbook is already played. In this particular decade, I think the playbook has to be more than that. Its cost advantage is unsaid. We have to look at what are the other advantages that we can bring to the table. And the only advantage that I can talk about, which a lot of investors are apprehensive of, is the quality of the product. Dr. Harsh, you have a question?
Yeah, so my question is that we have a representative in Europe who's looking after business development, but he doesn't have any authority in terms of signing the checks or anything. He's just a face to ensure that whenever somebody wishes to talk to, then they can talk to him in French, and
Yeah.
also is in the time zone which is convenient to them. Is it okay, or we need to have more than that?
For business development, maybe it's okay. For investors, it's not. If I'm investing in a company, Dr. Harsh, I want to see either one of the co-founder is in Europe, or someone who has really, really strong authority in the Europe.
Oh, okay.
And I also mentioned about the top co-location. Like that's another nuance angle that I would like to get into, but it's completely fine if you don't have it right now. But having a top co in the EU also makes a lot of difference.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So from the investors angle, cost story is not a great story to pitch to Europeans. The great story is strong tech, defensible tech. The end product is of much higher quality than anyone else you can get. Europeans also think differently. They think global right from day one. What I mean by that is that as long as IP is coming from India and the technology is based in India, they don't care that, if you manufacture the parts in China or somewhere else in the world, it's completely fine. Of course, like sovereignty is having a play. It's having its moment right now. But overall, what I'm trying to say is that you don't necessarily have to position that you're going to have manufacturing at India. You can manufacture parts in China and then still sell to Europe. The story that really works well for European is the technology and the IP. I think that's where you have to focus the most, not the cost. I think I already talked about this point. Okay. I think these were the points I wanted to flag just from the European venture capital ecosystem. I think there are a few points I want to flag, not just from an investment. These investment rules are not just specific to Europe. I think they are applicable to any startup, no matter where you're raising, be it Europe, India, or US. I think these points are strongly applicable. Since you all are going to France, I think this is something I would really want you to do, right? Test the VCs that you talk to on their market knowledge. If you're selling anything in the silicon industry, if you're selling anything in the climate, renewables material, when you talk to the investors, try to gauge their expertise and know-how on that market. And most likely it would happen that the person that you're talking to, they do invest, like as a fund, they invest in that market, but the person might not have the skills or expertise in talking to that. And that person may connect you to another person in the fund. But when you talk to the right person, always grill them on the market opportunity in the Europe. I think that's what you should test in this, 3 days of opportunity that you have. Whenever you talk to an investor, vet their market thesis, vet their market understanding. From their lens, do they see a market opportunity in the Europe? And that could actually help you understand whether Europe is a good market for you or not. You can also use your advisors, like when you go and try to find advisors, you can also use your advisors to learn more about the market. I think these are something which are non-negotiable that you should do when you talk to the investors in the Europe. It builds a very strong credibility, and it gives you a very good opportunity to have a follow-up call after the investor. Um, don't position that you're fundraising on day one. Get these understandings in place, do a multiple round of conversations with them, and then potentially, talk about that you are raising an X amount of fund. And that goes a long way. I think Europeans like to take it slow. It's about relationship building. It's not about just getting to the point on the first meeting. Uh, Again, something very nuanced about the European investors. Uh, Another important thing, a lot of times it happens that, when investors wants to talk to you, you might not be fundraising actively, which means you're not talking to investors. It's not seen as a good sign, not just in European ecosystem, but again, I mean, also in US. You have to keep talking to investors to build a relationship. Uh, the message that you are focused on building the product and not taking investor calls is seen as a signal that you have to specially prepare to talk to investors. It's not a good sign of a experienced founder. So always talk to investors, no matter what stage you are at. You can be very transparent that you're not fundraising, but you can always position that you are talking to the right investors who are the right fit for the company. That's how you should position it. And even on the first call, you can say that you're not actively fundraising, but you are open to talk about the product. You're open to talk about the milestones, and that's what investors would really appreciate at this point in time. Exploring partnership with European universities is like lowering the threshold of engaging with investors. It took me some time to realize that not everyone in Europe knows IIT. When I came here, I thought, okay, everyone would know IIT. That's how I used to introduce myself. I think now it's been 4 years. Some people know IIT, but I would say majority people that I come across, they don't, which sort of makes it very challenging to build a strong credibility with investors. Like if they don't know IIT, which is like really well pronounced university, it's a hurdle. And I believe the way to solve this problem is to develop some sort of relationship with the European universities. And I'm not sure if IITs have some sort of collaboration, funding, grant, cross-country relationship with the European universities. But if you're thinking of European market, and if you can do some sort of relationship, like get a professor from any university on your team, demonstrate that you have access to that university, and through that university, try to get some grant funding, if possible, for your project. I think that's a really, really strong signal for the European investors to build some comfort on the technology and the IP. What it shows is that, a European university has decided to vet this technology and do a project. A European, government or someone might have provided some grant. So some capital has flowed into the space, which sort of, speaks a lot on the credibility of the team and the founders and the technology. This is something that you can definitely try if you're going to Nice. Look for the opportunities with the universities if possible. And it doesn't necessarily has to translate to a grant. Just having some relationship with the university so that you can use their logo on your deck. I think this would be really, really credible in the long term. Right. I think that's all I had from my side. I'm happy to take more questions and keep doing the Q&A for the rest of the time we have.
Thank you so much, Yash. It was very crisp and very useful for all of them. So we'll take one by one. So we'll go with Balu first and then Dr. Harsh. Please keep your, if you have questions, you can raise your hands. I'll take one by one and pass it on to Yash. Yes, Balu.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that was a very useful. So with respect to this university engagement, right? One of the things that when we are doing a deep tech and we want some students for research students predominantly for working on some of the future problem areas or doing the research. We also know that we can potentially also try and access some of the grant funds that the local grant funds for such kind of a research can be done, right? Now, The only concern for us is the IP, right? Where does the IP reside? Would it reside? Have you had that kind of a challenge? Just kind of curious to know on that, Yash.
I would answer it this way.
Okay.
European investors wants the IP to be in Europe.
As always, yeah.
That's the interest. As they interest in the technology and IP, they do not really invest in the market. I mean, they invest in the European market, and this is fundamentally different, right? When you talk to US investors, Indian investors, we invest in market, right? Our underwriting thesis is how big is the market, how fast it can grow. Can you conquer the market in 5 years? That's how they think. The deep tech investors in Europe, they like tech, they like IP. And their investment model is built on that, right? They try to look at, okay, what would be the value of this tech and IP over the span of 5 years? In the worst case scenario, if the company doesn't get revenue, can we sell this IP to someone else? Licensing model is a celebrated model than, selling the product.
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand. I think given the fact I was in Philips for a very long time, where IP was the only one of the research was only one of the largest. Hey, thank you, Yash. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Dr. Harsh, you have a question?
Yes. Yes, I understand that you did from IIT, and a lot of European companies, they don't know about IIT. But I feel that there is a difference in investment scenario and acceptance between UK and rest of the Europe. Your thoughts on that? Because I've seen that European investors, especially in countries like maybe Italy, Portugal, Spain, they are not very familiar with what is being done in India, and they think India is a very difficult country with a lot of bureaucracy and all. While UK especially, they are more amenable, more approachable when we spoke to them. But again, they also have a requirement that we should have a presence in Europe, looking after at least some of the challenges which they face. They align to things like in energy when we are talking to them.
Yeah. Sorry, what's the question, Dr. Harsh?
So, I mean, when we are talking to European investors, would it mean to approach UK as a base and then move to Europe, or other way around?
No, I think so. UK is seen as an outside in Europe now. It's not technically the part of Europe. So, if you're focused on Europe, I would suggest like having a base in Europe would make a more difference. It's also a bigger market. If you're in UK, you will still most likely spend a lot of time in Europe, keep traveling. So it just makes sense. I think Luxembourg is a great place to do that. It could be different for different industries, Dr. Harsh. So I spend a lot of time in industrial transformation, energy, mining. And in this world, the deep tech investors that I speak to, starting with Eurazio, who does growth equity to the early stage, they know IIT is something, but they don't know the weight of it, like we understand in India.
Yeah.
So that weight is not delivered, right? That home run is not delivered when you say that you're from IIT. But versus if you say you are from ETH, that weight is delivered because they understand that language. They understand that prominence that university brings.
Okay.
Now we can't fight against it, right? It's a more nuanced understanding.
Yeah.
And that's why I believe like having a logo of ETH on the website, on the presentation, it just brings some sort of comfort, I feel like, I'm not looking at an Indian startup. I'm looking at a startup that has a strong connection with ETH as an investor. And that helps the investment case. I'm not saying it solves the problem, but it helps the investment case. A lot of people have tried it to unlock grants to universities. And there are quite a lot available. It's the question of IP. I think it's a fundamental decision you have to take. Is Europe is your go-to market? Is that where your company will flourish? And if yes, then definitely having a top core in EU will solve all these challenges.
Oh, okay. So Fraunhofer would offer the same benefits, I believe, because we are in energy space, especially renewable energy. So Fraunhofer, we have been in touch with Fraunhofer because NCPR in IIT Bombay has got some kind of a tie-up with Fraunhofer and NREL in US where they exchange research papers and all.
Yeah. And there's huge amount of grant funding available for the early stage deep tech companies, right? I mean, you don't necessarily have to do seed and series A. Like there are grants available that can take you to like $50 million sort of euro sort of grant without raising external capital. Of course, like you have to show it takes more time. Europe government is slow, a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of paperwork. But if you align to that, I think that's also a pathway that's available for a lot of companies in Europe. And that's one of the advantages.
Sure. Would love to catch up with you offline as well. Thank you so much.
Happy to do that.
We have a question from Parag. Parag, do you want to go next?
Yeah, okay. Yes, if you partly answered the question already, but still, like Europe still has China plus one strategy in focus. That's a growth driver at this point of time.
Yeah, is that a question you're asking me if Europe is going with
Yeah,
China
I just want
strategy?
a confirmation, maybe not big question then.
I think it's more of like a political thing. I don't know what EU government is thinking about it, but I'll tell you this. There are two kind of investment thesis European ventures write it. There's one is a sovereignty play. There are sectors and themes in technology where they want to have technology within Europe boundaries and borders. It could be critical metals, semiconductor, silicon, critical technologies, things like this. If you're doing anything other than that, having collaboration with China, or manufacturing in China or in India, having supply chain outside of Europe is considered as a strength. The European mindset is you have tech IP in Europe and scale it outside, sell it to the world, manufacture in the world. We don't care as long as IP sits in the Europe and there's a lot of revenue income coming from the licensing. People love it.
Got it. I thank you for a very straight answer. Great answer. Thank you.
Ravi, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hi Yash. Thank you for very crisp and very clear points that have been noted down. I have two quick questions. One, I need a suggestion from you. See, me as a person, I'm very honest. No, sometimes the projections do not occur the way we plan for, but but honest deliveries are given. And at the same time, I like to try out everything. So I typically say no, and I don't like to change myself. So do you think that I should not go for European investors? That's point number one. Because see, I am the way I am, and rather I would like to go for a US investor and not a European investor, because I would like to be bullish about things and stuff like that, right? That's one suggestion I'm seeking from you. And my second question is it safe to see? I like to share IP with people as long as they have contributed towards that IP. And then is it safe to believe that, okay, if an IP is shared with a European entity, let it be a university or a company, the value of the IP is actually grows. The value of the IP becomes bigger just because Europe values it much higher than the IP not sharing with a European company. These are my two questions.
I think I can answer the second question first. It's an easier one. Having an IP in Europe values it higher. And things are valued not how you feel it. It's about what price buyer is willing to give. And in Europe, you'll definitely find a higher value for the IP because that's what. So that's also they have a very strong governance structure on the licensing business model, right? So they know like they can defend that IP if you take it to, let's say, India or could take it to US. They have a strong defensible parameters in place. So yes to the second question. I think the first, I think it's a very subjective question. You had talked about two things which are very contradictory, and you'll have both of your feet in different boats. If you want to be more aggressive and bullish, US is the place. Everything about Europe you'll just feel frustrated. But that also demands you to push yourself and change with the market. If you want to be yourself, be very transparent, honest, no filter in what you think and say, I think, yeah, Europe is a better place for you. That's how Europeans are. You have to decide which one aspires you more.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Vikrant, do you want to go next?
Yeah, please. I hope I'm audible. Hi, Yash.
Yes. Yes. Hi.
Thanks for those insights. I broadly wanted to also get a sense of would you put VCs and corporate VCs in the same with the same painted with the same brushstroke that you've already sort of narrated here, or are there certain nuances and specifics that one should also specifically take care of when dealing with those?
So, I think it will be different, right? What I've told you today is most of the VC mindset, not the corporate VC mindset. But I would also say that not every corporate VC, like they are not same. Some corporate VCs are like more like VCs, and some corporate VCs are just strategic. They don't want to make money on it as long as they can use it within the corporate. Um, and in fact, none of the VCs are same as well, right? Every fund is unique in its own way. So the the experience that I've shared with you today, it's more of like a non-spoken understanding that I've had working with VCs and CVCs in the European ecosystem. I would not pin it down to, okay, this is how CVCs or VC operate. Keep it as a general uh, learning.
Okay, thanks.
Bhuvanesh, do you want to go next?
Hi, yes, it was a wonderful session. What you are currently being replying so fast and crisp. Thank you so much for that. And we have one product ready, and we are working in India as of now. And our another office is in America. We did some project in America as well. We want to explore the EU market, and we doesn't have too much money to get enter in that particular market. So the product is ready, certifications are ready. I think there are one or two certifications are another needed for EU market, which is related to ATEX. We are working in energy domain, hydrogen, hydrocarbon, and we are into pipeline inspection. So what is your suggestion to us that how to move forward the EU market? In EU, there are three companies. One is belongs to Germany, another is belongs to France. But the France company is only taking care of their own pipeline, which is I think 100 kilometers or something like this. But the rest of the company in total EU market, there are three companies belongs to the EU, and the other companies are coming from outside, which are our competitors. So how to reach out to the people and how to move in the market that we need to search out the VC, we need to search out the same field companies, or how to forward. So this is my question.
Sure. I would say that first get the customer and then the VC. As an investor, I want to see a European customer before I even make an investment case. I want to see European customer. So one thing I mentioned in the slide, a validation in India, US, or anywhere in the world doesn't mean validation in Europe. Europe takes pride in the high regulations that they have, the high safety standards that they have, fact of safety and everything. They want to see the technology deployed in their environment and their ecosystem. So have a customer, even if it's a small pilot, demonstrate that. Once you have a pilot demonstrated, that's when investors like me would be interested. But because you're traveling to France, talk to investors because this relationship will take time to develop. So bad answer, but you have to do both. But commercial will come first before an investment.
But as we aware about that, the European people come a little late and they're not responsive too fast. So
It takes time.
it will take an year to be entering this particular market.
It's frustrating. 2-3 weeks is like a common time to get a response on an email.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll see you in Nice then.
Yeah, looking forward.
Right.
Yeah. Since we do have few more minutes, like any final questions, we can take like two more. Yes, Shekhar,
Yeah,
please.
Yash, thanks for a wonderful talk, very educative. But I have a very basic question. We have in India these days a very strong network of VCs,
And fortunately, we are in a position that we have got a very encouraging response from Indian VCs. Now, my basic point is, why the glamour for this European VCs against the Indian VCs? Because here it is probably the storytelling is more simple. They can also have a trust in you. The diligence becomes easier and things like that. So some comments on that, please. Thanks.
It's very relative, Mr. Shekhar. When we say that, Indian VCs are investing in deep tech, okay, I think I was in Bangalore over the weekend and I met some of the deep tech investors in India just to understand how the deep tech market in India is evolving. Based on my few conversations I have had, I think there's a lot of early capital pool of money going in, seed series A, lot of deep tech money which is coming in. More funds are coming in, funds are expanding, everyone wants to invest in deep tech. The challenge is always in the growth capital. Unless you have a growth capital invest in the deep tech, you won't have a sustainable venture capital model. Because as an early stage investor, I want to see exits coming in. That exit will come in higher valuation exits. That will only happen if there's a growth capital available in the market. We need more success stories like Ather. But if you look at Ather as well, they did not raise money from venture capital. They raised money from the angel investors, family offices, corporate. I think that's the gap that India has to fill in. And relatively speaking, Europe is ahead in that, but Europe is still behind US in that growth capital. And that's what would really unlock the deep tech. That's my take on a few conversations I have had.
No, it's very relevant. If I may just add here, see, first, initially, we also raised funds from the family offices and things like that.
Yeah.
And in the next round, we have raised it through Excel and few other. And basically, the idea was growth capital. So suppose if you are already, some big houses are already supporting you, do you still have to really look around for, outside VCs? Moment they know your story, they will automatically come to you. We have seen in our case, typically, that's what we have enjoyed it because generally been able to build that story. So
are you focused only on India or are you thinking of expanding to Europe?
See, that is what is the key point. Presently, our market is quite big. We are working in the marine autonomous domain. And there are very few companies in India who are operating on that. And there is a large budget and there is a TAM is quite big here. So initially focus is, first of all, address it, have a good acceptance of the product, and then only start looking abroad. Of course, this opportunity has come, niche opportunity has come. So one is participating in this. So any advice here? Anything you want to suggest?
I think, Mr. Shekhar, my only advice would be that a lot of deep tech VCs in India also focus on India as a market and opportunity. They just wanted to win in India, and that's like a home run exit for them. Because India is a big market. Is your IP really compatible to Europe and US and China? That's what you have to answer when you're going to Europe. Because just winning in India, it's not enough for Europe. You have to win globally to be relevant in Europe.
Thank you. Very relevant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any final questions before we close?
Hi, Yash.
Yes,
This is
Hi.
Kant from Intello Labs. I'll just on my screen. Yeah, hi, Yash. So my question is, how do you think for Europe, country by country? Of course, all the companies are going to France. But every country, VCs have their own ideas on safety, challenges, growth, etc. So just a few pointers on how should we approach different markets in Europe?
I think, Nishan, the best analogy I can give is like think of Europe like India, just different countries are different states. It's very much like that. Every country has its own niche. So for example, if you want to do solar, right, Spain is the best place. So maybe go to Portugal. That's where, Madrid becomes more important, right? If you are doing anything in industrial automation, robotics, go to Germany, right? Nothing like that. If you're doing in AI, digitalization, France is super important in that. So it purely depends on, what kind of domain and industry you are in. I would though definitely say that no matter where the VC is based, they have a European-wide perspective. So even when you talk to a French VC, they do invest in Germany, they do invest in, Norway, they do invest in. So think of it from that perspective. Most of the development is on the west and the north of Europe, right? There's fewer opportunity when you go to south and east. But these are the broad markets that you should focus on. And depending on which technology you're on, visit there and then do technology collaboration over there with the university. I think that would be a really good step in into this new market.
Great. Thanks, Yash. Happy to see you in Nice, France. Yeah.
Likewise.